Ken Carla. This is Walgreens. This is the firehouse. And this looks like a creek. It's not. I learned today it's part of the floodplain. It's sort of a gully at the back of the head property, and they're in their houses on the other side of it. Mike Thomas, who's sitting over here, lives down on River Road behind the gully. So, so that just gives a little orientation.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Firehouse. Yeah, River Road is creek. It's not. I learned today it's part of the
And so yes, the map in some ways might suggest that what's blue is actually water. Yeah, thank you. So in fact, it's not.
Behind the gully.
Yeah.
So north is. So that just gives a little orientation.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. North is to the right.
Yeah, River Road. Have that discussion later.
And so yes, the map in the bottom right corner. Yeah,
that's you were part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So, in fact, it's not. Yeah. Anything else we should point out on the? Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Timber Ridge.
North is to the right. Yeah, really beyond it's shown where Ken in the bottom right corner. Yeah,
you were part of that.
Yeah.
So this is Kroger.
Yeah, thank you. So, in fact, thank you for the clarification. Anything else we should point out on the? Oh, well, I don't know. Is that enough of an overview of the site constraints? So maybe we should switch to your really beyond it's shown where Ken in the bottom right corner. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
So,
in fact, thank you for the clarification.
can you see the hand?
Anything
Yes,
else
you can.
we should point out on
So the site is somewhat limited by the
site
buildable area
constraints?
that's reaching down to
So maybe we
42
should
is
switch
this
to
300-foot
really
wide,
beyond
what we call the neck, that
in
sits
the bottom
between
right
the
corner.
Ken Fulton subdivision and the Carla, excuse me, Carla subdivision. And then this is the fire and EMS building, and the site is somewhat limited by the buildable area that's reaching down to 42.
Yeah, please.
This is 300-foot wide.
Yes.
We call
Dive
it
right into that.
that sits between
The red line
subdivision
is
and the study area.
the
Carla,
study
excuse
area.
me. So
It
not the
includes
Carla,
more
Carla
than just the
subdivision.
property that.
And then this is the
west.
fire EMS building. And the site is somewhat so there's Gustavo's here. There's a liquor store next to it. There's the First Baptist Church there, and the Walgreens a bit further over to the on the north. This is the private school that's located in the study area as well. And then you'll notice, every project we get involved in, Gustavo's here, we demand a tree survey. And most projects don't have a tree survey. And it's the biggest sticking point I have with my clients because it's expensive and it takes time. But it's really in private school to use the trees, to use the trees for not just to save trees because we love trees, we get involved in, but to make placer. And the best places have trees. Before I get into the plan, I want to say I talked a little bit about mixed use and making towns as opposed to making pods. But the other big theoretical backdrop of the work that we do is to focus on walkability. Not just to save trees because we love trees, we get involved where they can walk. Even if they drive to it, they want to be able to park. The best places have trees. Some people just want the big house and the big lot, and that's great. And there are plenty of those. But about half of Americans, if you poll them, would rather have a smaller house or an apartment in a place where they can walk to lots of other things. They would prefer that over the big house on the big lot. It so happens that that's about the big house in the big. I should say the house in the area where there's no reason to walk, where you don't feel comfortable. And there are plenty of those. Is the vast majority. Half of Americans, if you can do that. So whenever you provide a place that's walkable, you have a much, as we've seen in the prices for that over the big house, you have a much stronger demand, and so happens that no trouble selling it. So what is walkability? That's become the focus of my career, to define what makes a walkable place. My best known book is called Walkable City, and I talk about how if people are going to make the choice to walk, the walk has to do 4 things simultaneously to make it better than driving or as good as driving. It needs to be useful, it needs to be safe, it needs to be comfortable, and it needs to be in. So what is walkability? Each one of those lays out a bunch of mandates that we try to accomplish. My best known book is called Walkable City. Useful has to do with about how if people are going to make choices. There's no reason to walk if everything else that's near you is just another house. To make it better, or everything that's near your office is just another office. So by providing the mixed use that I've already spoken about, suddenly walking serves one of those lays out a bunch of mandates that. Why should you have to drive to get cat food? Honestly, right? To get you to the playing field, to get you to the church. So that's the useful walk. The safe walk is mostly about how we design streets. And as I mentioned, and Mike also mentioned about Norton Commons, we try to make the streets wide enough for everything to get through, especially emergency services, no wider than cat is there. And most of the work we do, for example, in downtown Louisville and other American cities, so that's the useful. You have a lot. There are a lot of places in America. Louisville is certainly one of them. Mostly about where the downtown's got a lot of great things in it, and the principal problem to people walking is the street design. Right, the typical street in downtown Louisville is like 3 lanes one way, high speed. It feels like no wide, you feel safe there. So all the little tricks we use, and there's about 15 of them downtown Louisville, to make streets safer, not just narrower, but also parallel parking, protect sidewalks, where downtown's got a lot of great things, knocks the space down to make problems for walking is so that's the safe walk. I started to talk about all the little tricks, generally the comfortable walk. And the comfortable walk, the planners that we the term that we planners like to use is outdoor living. And the idea that we're actually most comfortable in places that are enclosed. And that's a little counterintuitive because that's but actually the evolutionary biologists tell us that all animals, including humans, we want to have prospect, we want to have refuge. The feeling of refuge that comes from your flanks when you cut. And so a great street, they've been talking about this since we're actually most comfortable. A great street has edges that are as much as tall as the street is. So you feel that sense of being in space. That's what comfortable is all about. It's about space and enclosure. Still having views, but also having a sense of being in rooms. And then finally, the interesting one has to do with variety and signs of humanity. So obviously you don't want the same building edges over and over and over again. Tall as the street is under the same house. You feel that. Jane Jacobs, the famous urban theorist, said, "No one will ever walk from repetition to repetition or sameness to sameness, even if the effort." And then finally, the interesting one, because it's just boring, has to do. So we want to have variety, but then also, avoiding blank walls, avoiding exposed garages, avoiding exposed parking lots. All these things are boring to walk past. So we have rules, and I'll show you, in fact, in the plan where if we have a parking structure, we hide it. If we have a blank wall, we put windows in. So we have rules in our codes. You can't have avoiding blank walls, avoiding exposed. You can't have more than 10 feet of blank wall without a window, right? 30 wet lashes with a wet noodle.
That was Gustavo's.
And I'll show you. Gustavo's got one blank wall because I guess he had to have a fryer or something. But so those 4 things, right? Useful, safe, comfortable, and interesting. That goes into all the plans that we do. So this is really important that we say this, and people are going to look at this and just remember this. But these are, again, Gustavo's got one blank wall. I guess being here after one day of drawing. But importantly, I have 2 different plans that I'm showing you. Right? This is plan 1 and this is plan 2. And they are different because we haven't settled on a plan. Really important that I think I want to point out some of the key features of both plans. Remember this, which is essentially that Gustavo's got one blank wall when I move the mouse around after one day of drawing. So here in our neck, we have the neck that touches 42. We have the main entry, and this is imagined as a main street. So there's 2 different versions here. One has skinnier, what we call lot liner buildings, which are smaller and have surface parking behind. So here, the other plan actually has bigger buildings that not only we have the main have room for more apartments and more of a significant edge for visibility against the highway, but also make for a taller, more main street, kind of 1-to-1 ratio of height to width of the street. And then what you see here is a parking deck that is wrapped and hidden. So up against the unpleasant edge of the EMS and the electrical substation is where the parking is hidden. And then you notice it's wrapped by this red area, which is a single loaded corridor, residential. So there's a hallway around the parking, and then that serves apartments that are wrapping all around. And then more normal apartment buildings here and here. So this is the dense heart of the hidden. And we want apartments or condos in the middle because we want a lot of bodies in the middle. And you'll see in this scheme, this is also a parking deck that is wrapped and hidden. And in this scheme, similar. And then more normal clear apartment buildings here. So every time I touch the hand, it advances me. But you can see over there to the we want a lot of bodies. Oh, someone else. You'll see in this scheme, you can see these parking structures that are again wrapped and hidden. And this is the densest part of the plan. This is where the most action, the most activity is. You also see in both schemes, the main street is terminating. That's a technical term. You can see over there to the freeing view. It's just fun and exciting. It draws you into it at the end of the structures that are view. In this case, we're imagining a civic building, which could be a black box theater. It could be a you also see in religious site. It could be a new city hall. We don't have to talk about that, but that's a possibility. That's welcoming you in by being at the end of your view. And then next to it, we see an amphitheater. If you look underneath, you see this finger of a draw of topography that's pulling into the site. And we put in this scheme, we put an amphitheater here as a great little addition that would bring life and energy to the downtown of the neighborhood. As you head east and west, and then next to the density becoming, these are not buildings. You see this finger of a draw of topography that's pulling into the site. And we put in this scheme, we put an amphitheater here as a great little addition that would bring life and energy to the downtown of the neighborhood. As you head east and west, and then next to the density becoming, these are not buildings. You see this finger of a draw of topography that's pulling into the site. And we put in this scheme, we put an amphitheater here as a great little addition that would bring life and energy to the downtown of the neighborhood. As you head east and west, and then next to the density becoming, these are not buildings. You see this finger of a draw of topography that's pulling into the site. And we put in this scheme, we put an amphitheater here as a great little addition that would bring life and energy to the downtown of the neighborhood. As you'll see, this one has more of a little square in this location. This one has a larger town square. The amphitheater would likely still go in this area, but there could be a civic building on this edge. And then you'll notice the square is a big living room that's surrounded by mixed-use buildings. We're imagining that the retail would be the entirety of the main street and much of the way around the square. Maybe these are more conventional retail, whereas these are live-work buildings where you see them in Norton Commons where people buy just a row house, but the ground floor is a shop. And that's the heart of the neighborhood.
Can I jump in on the retail for a minute? When we say conventional retail,
Oh, sorry.
you don't mean conventional in the suburban.
I mean conventional Main Street retail. So pulling up to the street, parking is in the back. We want to have
restaurants, I think.
including restaurants, mostly restaurants.
And what's fortunate about a design like this is it actually doesn't appeal to the large chains that you see proliferating along the highways. It doesn't have the parking in front. It doesn't have the visibility that they're often after. It doesn't appeal to them. And so what you get are the much more interesting restaurants, generally more local or regional restaurants or businesses. Sorry.
No, thank you. And then what you see also here is all of these uses are staying in place. So the liquor store and Gustavo's and the church, but with the idea of having a nice block network, bringing a street through the middle, there's already a drive past Gustavo's in this location, and the idea that this could be a street that's lined by row houses or other low buildings, and then that parking can be hidden. This is just a surface parking lot. Parking can be hidden in the back.
One note while you're on that block, there are a number of advantages to us working on site in Prospect doing this work rather than Jeff's office in Boston or our office outside Washington. and that is that we can go out and check the drawing
Mhm.
with the reality. But as just said, we've been at this for a day and a half, so there's that back and forth that still needs to take place. And we sometimes can get a little over eager about the work we're doing, and we see, oh, there's another opportunity for a connection or a building that would add to the walkability. And so you'll notice on the far right bottom corner there, we've actually leapt outside the study area and started proposing ideas beyond that focus area. And this is just on paper now. So those ideas can easily be reined back in. Or if it happens that you think it's actually a good idea, we can incorporate it into the final work that we're doing. But just in case you're wondering why we've left out beyond the boundary.
But you can see the plans have certain shared features and certain different features. The main takeaway there would be that we're still trying to figure it out.
Could you speak to the importance of a grid for walkability?
Yeah, that drawing is not in here, but one of the first things we do.
Generally, yeah.
One of the first things we do is, I mean, if you think about any place where you might go to walk or do a lot of walking, or where the population is largely people who, in addition to driving, or instead of driving, are choosing to walk around, one common denominator that you always find is a street network, not just a system of collectors to arterials to cul-de-sacs, but actually, I hesitate to use the word grid because grid implies rectilinear. And often, if you look at traditional cities, sometimes the grids are rectilinear, sometimes they're cranky, sometimes they're a little curvy. But the one thing they all share is small blocks. Another term for it is intersection density. How many intersections per square mile do you have? And actually, there's almost no greater correlation in city design than between the number of people who walk and the density of your intersections. So we have a lot of constraints here because of the existing impediments to connectivity, such as the EMS and the substation. But to the degree possible, and certainly in the head property, we're trying to create that block structure. We have lots of different choices. Jane Jacobs, who I mentioned, who's the great urban theorist, she said, she had a chapter called "The Need for Small Blocks," and it's the only in the Death and Life of Great American Cities, which is the one book that every planner has read. There's only 3 drawings in her kind of scrawly hand, and they're in that chapter showing why small blocks are important to street life and to community building. So I think that concludes our show.
Yeah, our show, yes.
But we're here for feedback, and we understand that when we're back in D.C. and Boston, you would be living in this community and living with whatever happens here. So planning is nothing if it isn't an engagement process for us to hear what you all have to say.
So the council knows that I try to keep these meetings, avoid them becoming conversations. So with that said, we'll recognize people, they can speak and ask questions, but we'll try to keep some order to this. There are members of the audience who are not on the council and not on the Architectural Review Committee, and we've got an opportunity for them to speak. And that's actually the next item on the agenda. So I think we will do that. If there's anybody here who would like to speak, and we'll ask if you'll come up, Norman, and come to the lectern and state your name, and you can make a comment, and we'll put a stopwatch on you, and you get questions.
Yeah, my name's Norman Hicks. I'm a resident here for about 6 years now. My only question is, when you approach this sort of thing, do you think this might be 40% this, 20% this, 60% retail? And in all that, do you have an idea how many housing units in this? Retail is kind of fill in between, and you make that comfortable and make it nice. But how many households are we talking about?
We started the count. Literally, we just finished the plans, took pictures real quick, and dropped them into the presentation. So I can't give you the numbers today, but they're coming. And I'll say to your point about the percentage of this and the percentage.
Mike, step up so you're a little closer to the microphone.
I'm sorry, thank you. So the question about the percentages of this and percentages of that, the places that we've been involved in that have turned out the best are those where the developer that's building it has had some degree of flexibility to respond to the market over time. Because, COVID is a great example that made a dramatic change in the office market with so many more people working differently, working at home and so forth now, or shared spaces. So there should be some degree of flexibility if you want this to be truly great, but within certain boundaries. Just don't know the numbers yet because we've just started the process.
And I can elaborate that it would be rare for a design of ours to be permitted without caps of some sort, right? Because you're not going to want to see 50,000 units or 1,000,000 square feet of retail, or we need to come to a mutual understanding as to, and it would be in the permitting documents as to what's the most that you would hope to see on the property, because that's important. But what we found is that within those caps, developers, if a place is going to grow, developers have to be able to follow the market. So the choice between a row house or a live work unit or a bungalow or a mansion, keeping those things flexible is very useful to allowing things to grow properly.
You might,
Jim, step up. I think this microphone will work right here in front of you, at that table or at the lectern.
thank you. I should be used to this. I was just going to point out that one of the things we've asked our consultants and planners to do is to write a regulating code. And so when this property is entirely within the city, you'll have the ability to adopt that code if you choose. So in essence, I don't like the word zoning, but it's a regulating code that deals with the form, the height of, and to some extent, the architecture of the buildings. And we found in Carmel, we never really wanted to go over 5 levels.
So somebody here has got a radio or a phone, or the police are talking to us, or
It's coming back from his.
We're getting feedback.
Oh.
It's the delay of the microphone speaking.
okay. He's going to check. Let's just take.
We're hearing ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's take just a break for a second. He's going to check with Ron.
Somebody's listening to the stream and it's coming.
So, how's it doing that?
15-second delay. Somebody's listening to it.
Somebody in the room?
Somebody were
In the vicinity of the speakers or something.
There.
Now it's quiet.
No.
Yeah.
It's what we replied 10 seconds ago.
But I don't know if it's coming from back there.
One, two, three. I don't hear the feedback now. Is it still?
I've just been ignoring it.
We've all been doing that, but it's annoying. We can ignore it, but it's still annoying. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I'll be very brief. But I wanted to explain too that part of the process will be to ask Jeff, Mike's team to come up with to write a regulating plan. This is very typical when they do their master planning and then present it to the legislative body with a recommendation to adopt it, so that the plan is actually followed over a period of time. And part of the process, usually I would advise the city, we did this in Carmel, to hire architectural firm, probably makes sense to hire master planners to review the individual architectural submissions when the various builders submit them to make certain that they comply with the pattern of the development that's been proposed. So I just wanted to make sure that part of the process was understood.
Thank you. All right. Are there other questions or comments from members of the public who are present? Yes, Carolyn, if you'll step up.
So, my husband and I often go to Gustavo's and Evergreen Liquors, and one of our main concerns is access and egress from those properties. So, my question is, will those businesses be somehow connected to this new development? And are there better plans than for access and egress so that people don't have to come out on US 42 and turn left, which is very precarious.
We're still working on that. There's I'll just leave it here. There's an opportunity. This is the sort of thing that you hesitate to say because you don't know, because you're just speculating. But as an example of the kind of choices we face, the private school there has a playground to its west. If that playground were relocated to its north, then there could be an access point through. So that's the sort of conversation that we then have with the school. Say, boy, it'd be nice if there was a street network or at least a pedestrian network that connected, the main street to the south with the street that we hope will run between Gustavo's and the church to the north. And so we can't speak for what the school is going to say, but one of our conversations will be with the school to say, hey, can we move your playground? If we give you the land or we arrange for you to have the land, it's not our land to give, but if there's a swap and your playground moves from this side of your building to that side of your building, all of a sudden that connection is there. Right.
Are you going to talk about the circles?
Mayor Farnsley has been working for some time with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet to make improvements to 42, and they've approved, I think, two roundabouts, three roundabouts, Mayor. And I infamous or famous, depending on opinion, I suppose we've done more roundabouts in Vermont than any other city in the country. 160 a day, and 4 stoplights left. And just for the record, their tally rate's 1/6 the nation. 1/6 the nation. So we don't know who they are. The car will save about 10 lives a year. So they're just much safer. One of the reasons they're safer, in addition to just slower speeds, is that you eliminate left-hand turns, which is what you mentioned. And so if there were to be a roundabout at the entrance to this new development, those left-hand turns would be eliminated. And you can even put a median, you have the option to put median down the middle of the street, and then instead of making a left-hand turn to a business on the left side, just go to the next roundabout and come back. But left-hand turns are, I think I saw a statistic, over 50% of the fatalities we have in this country. They're very dangerous. And so if you could design the highway in such a way to eliminate those left-hand, you hit right on it. It becomes much safer and easier.
Can you pull up that slide and show how that would look? Because actually you have that on there. Just at a conceptual view. I think it was on there.
The addition of another roundabout?
The entrance to
Yeah,
this
I saw that when I
development
was
being a roundabout.
right.
So even if it's not on there, if you could just hypothetically show like exiting the Gustavo's to the right, looping the roundabout.
Well, so there's a roundabout planned already for here. Oh, you can see it there, right?
Right.
There's another one planned for down by the Publix corner. Does everyone know what I mean by the Publix area? Further to the north. And then we would like to have another one here as well. So if you wanted to get to, if you're heading north and you want to get to Gustavo's, you would just go around this roundabout and double back. And yes, you're going a little bit further, but it's super easy and safe. And the mayor said this very quickly, but if you compare Carmel to the surrounding municipalities, which are demographically similar, same number of people driving and everything else, they have literally saved dozens of lives every year that the mayor's been in office because of the 160 roundabouts that they've put there, which, they say when there's a roundabout and there's a crash, you don't call the ambulance, you call the tow truck. Because there are crashes, but they're glancing crashes and they're slower crashes. No one goes through it faster than 15 miles an hour because they don't feel safe driving faster than 15 miles an hour. And pedestrians are very safe crossing because you only have to look way. So introducing roundabouts, and the fact that KTC is the transportation cabinet's been coordinating, they've become more progressive over the years. They like roundabouts, right? So that's all very good news for the future of safety in Prospect.
Okay. Yes, if you'll step up. No, we need, ma'am, we need you to step up here because we're broadcasting.
Okay, my question is, are you talking about 3 roundabouts in a very short distance?
How far apart are, I mean, there's definitely a moment between them where you're not seeing a roundabout, but you go through one, and then you drive for maybe 30 seconds, and you're going through another, and then 30 seconds.
So you're gonna be coming out, going a little bit, coming out, going, that's kind of, isn't there another way you can connect almost going from where you're planning on building? Then when you go by, you stop at Kroger's shop, can there be connection so that you don't have to come out and go about a roundabout?
Just to clarify, you're not required to do a full lap around every roundabout, like a loop-to-loop, you're just kind of going around the edge.
But I think the point may be.
I think her question, Jeff, I heard very quickly there was, is there another way so you don't have to come out on 42? Speaking
A
to your
different path.
Right, because it's it's a lot of land being taken up right in front of Kroger. A lot of that landing is going to be taken up to build a roundabout. Likewise, when you come into Fox Harbor, excuse me, my throat's not.
that was me last week.
I'm just visually thinking what we're losing, and I'm not saying I'm against your plan. It's just we do have traffic problems, and I'm not sure that overdoing the roundabouts. We like roundabouts, but you have 3 within a mile.
Well, I'll let the mayor speak to that because he is truly the national expert on roundabouts. However, I will say that one of our goals, I talked about small blocks. Small blocks being important for walkability. Small blocks are also important to fight traffic because you don't want all your traffic just on one street, right? So you want to have another way to get through. So the idea of having this north-south access through our plan as well, that might pull some of the trips off of the 42 and off of River Road, would be a good addition. But the mayor can say more about the roundabout.
Yeah, and well, it connects to that, Jeff, because what we started doing after World War II in this country was getting rid of so many of the connections by building cul-de-sacs. I live on a cul-de-sac, so I like my cul-de-sac. But what it did forces all the traffic out to the main roads. Then those roads get very congested. And so there's not as many alternatives as there used to be, whether it's a grid system or another type of plan where you have multiple parallel roads you can take. So this plan creates another road more or less parallel to 42. It's going to take some of the traffic off 42. Something else that I didn't know until we started studying roundabouts 30 years ago. The roundabout will move, and this has to do with the congestion issue which we have on 42. Will move 50% more cars per hour than a traffic light. So what we took one road in Carmel that was 2 lanes in each direction with a center left-hand turn lane, what we call a suicide lane, and we took out all the lights and reduced most of it to 1 lane in each direction. Took out the lights, put in roundabouts because they move so many more cars per hour. We didn't need 4 lanes anymore. We moved the same amount of traffic in the same amount of time, but actually a little less time on just 1 lane in each direction. And so many times traffic engineers, my experience, will add lanes where there's congestion. All they're really doing is trying to get more cars through the green light cycle by creating a bigger parking lot. Widen the road between all the lights, and then when that light turns green, you just got a bigger parking lot to go through the green light. If the roundabouts have constant flow, and they move so many more cars per hour. You don't need to. It's that old song, you know, pave over paradise. You don't need to pave as much. And Carmel, in the end, at least, you know, 1 mile of 2-lane road from scratch, about $14 million a mile. So the taxpayers are also saving a lot of money, not having to make those lanes as wide. If that helps you, but that's some of the analysis. Okay, hopefully that helps. You understand why we're recommending that.
So Herb, I'm going to get to you in a minute. We've got, because you're part of the Architectural Review Committee, therefore you're part of this meeting as a participant. But are there any other non-council or non-architectural review committee folks who would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make.
Bob, let me get the
okay.
architectural review folks first.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may do a follow-up question. You're the only one that gets that opportunity.
John also has a question.
I'll get to the council.
Okay, so I was just wondering if there is any opportunity to connect this development and Gustavo's and Evergreen Liquors to River Road. Because, I mean, when Gustavo's was built, we thought there was going to be some way that we wouldn't have to exit onto River Road, onto US 42. But in designing this development, it would be really nice to be able to have an access and egress to River Road. So
Thanks, Carolyn.
The challenge there, which we would love to surmount, like this point, is the floodplain that comes through here. So we know that Timber Ridge Drive connects, and actually what you see in this drawing is the road that goes down past the marina already has a bridge between the marina and the floodway that we would like to bring up the hill and connect into our neighborhood, creating another piece of network, right? So that not every trip has to double back or go further along those streets. So we hope to reconnect the network here in line with Ken Carley. But between that bridge across the head of the marina and Timber Ridge, I believe that this, which is where we would put a connection through to River Road, is not passable. Is that accurate?
In an economical way.
In an economical way. Yeah. So that's our limitation, nature.
But isn't it true that there's the possibility of a connection from the head property through to Timber Ridge in the back way?
We're exploring.
Yeah, that would solve some of the problem that Carolyn is talking about.
All right, I'm going to take David's question as an opportunity for us to transition from.
Can I make one comment, because I can't speak on y'all's behalf?
Absolutely.
So my name is Wes Johnson. I can't comment later, so I'll comment with the public.
No, you can't. We can work things out, but go ahead.
I am the public. Happen to also be, my firm is the hopeful to be developer of this parcel of ground and the aggregate of several parcels that we're trying to adjoin to make this a better community. My partner in the back, Scott Jacobs, he and myself and our team feel very privileged to both be working on y'all's side of the fence, because as you guys know, development doesn't always start that way. Very often, developers from out of town, they put an offer on a piece of property, they know what the laws are, they hire these guys, and then they come and it's done before anybody gets this opportunity. So very seldom do I feel like, and I've never had the opportunity to be at this phase, the early phase, working what we feel like is alongside of a great municipality who wants something great for the city, who agreed to reach out and put together and assemble a team of what we feel like is the best master planners in the world. And it's evident if you just look at their work, they've done it. They understand it at such a high level, and they know the facts. Not what we want, what we think we want, but they know the facts. What we know, and by the way, I'm here, we want to develop it, but I also live here. My office It's a Prospect address, although not annexed, and the Prospect is at the top of the hill, and I live beyond it in Goshen on Buckeye Lane. So the concerns of driving through Prospect, through roundabouts, quite frankly, I come in and out of here 10 times a day. My daughter goes through here for school. I'm concerned about it, but I trust the facts and the data, and I've seen it. And I understand that because I sit in the same traffic all of you sit in. But I have to trust the data and the fact that it works. And we're taking, hopefully, recommendations and we're going to adopt them into our plan and see if we can accommodate some of the changes that other cities have done. We built Gustavo's and Evergreen Liquors, and we connected the parking lots on the front and back in hopes that later, with future developments, we could connect them and the preschool, because all three of those now connect to another way to exit out of 42. We actually made connections connecting the preschool purposely because they came to us while designing that and said, can you help us get a left turn or another way? Because our parents during rush hour traffic who come in here to pick up their kids and then go home to Goshen and Prospect, it's a nightmare getting out. So all of those things, we live it, we're aware of it, we appreciate the comments, and they are most definitely like of highest level of importance, connectivity. So just wanted you guys to know that, and also we're very grateful to be able to be a part of this. So in the weeks to come, and I think even as soon as later this week, it's amazing what these guys have done. And what would typically take our engineers 6 months of planning and back and forth, in a day and a half what they've done. So we're excited that Friday, I feel like we're gonna have a broader plan that might even show some stuff that nobody's agreed to, meaning other landowners saying, hey, yeah, we'll let you work within our means. But we feel like if we take the broad approach and we master plan, that we can sell that to other property owners and business owners, because they know that by doing this, their land value's going up, our home values are going up, their businesses are going to do better. So we're very hopeful of that. So.
Thanks, Wes. We appreciate it. So I'm going to turn now to members of the Architectural Review Committee and members of the council. And I'll first recognize Herb Schulhafer, who is a member of the Architectural Review Committee and is an architect. Retired, but still an architect. Once an architect, always an architect.
Very active.
Well, I think the plans in this early stage are really exciting. And, I've been a long-term resident of Prospect, so, and I think that they would be successful. But the one thing I have noticed about the existing condition, that much of the site is in the floodplain. And I know from experience the difficulty of getting approvals of things in the floodplain. So, I'm taking everything in light blue is in the flood. Yes. So that's the only one thing I'm not, in your early study, I think I felt that need to bring it up. So that's
let me speak to that because it's a concern we've all got. And I think Wes is very much on top of that issue. And they're paying attention pretty closely to the requirements about the floodplain and building in that area. So
yeah, one thing I'd say to that is, this is a team of the best master planners in the world. They, all week and even before coming down here, have been consulting with local civil engineers and a team that's been on the site doing survey who does understand the local regulatory floodplain. There are definitely challenges from a developer standpoint. Quite frankly, this is not the best piece of property to pick, but when you're a Prospect resident, which I am, and when you want a community where I don't have to drive to the Paddock Shopping Center or downtown Louisville to eat dinner because we have no restaurants, my interest personally is let's figure out a way to make it work. And let's figure out what we can do within this piece of ground that something's gonna happen there. And if we can't make it work, another developer likely can come and put something in there that we're gonna be way less proud of, and that's not gonna benefit any of us. So are there constraints? There's lots. And we're trying to push the boundary. We understand what we can do, and probably some of which on our plan, honestly, we're gonna get pushed back from and it's gonna fall away. But what they're trying to do is design it to such a point that if some of those things we lose, it doesn't blow the whole plan up. Some of the things we can do, you mentioned, you saw the amphitheater, for instance, earlier. We can put an amphitheater in the floodplain. Look at waterfront development. So some of the park areas in this property, like some of the detriment to the site being the flood area, are gonna become walking paths down by Harrods Creek, which nobody has access to now. So some of it, we're gonna try to use it to our benefit for green space, but that does require condensing the building space into taller buildings, quite frankly, because we have to make, monetarily, we have to make it work. So I don't know if that alludes to that.
Thanks, Wes. So I've got a couple of people who are asking to speak, and so I'm gonna ask John Evans. John, did you have a question? No? Okay, Bob Jacob.
First, I'd like to offer my congratulations to you because what you have accomplished in such a short period of time is just short of stunning. And I've also been to at least a half a dozen of those communities that you have developed. I'm familiar with Seaside probably for 25 years. Rosemary Beach is my family's favorite place to vacation. I've been to Carmel. I believe I've been to the one in Alabama. If that one in Alabama is Mountain Brook, is that Mountain Brook?
Well, Mountain Brook is an older community, but not far from Mountain Brook is our community called Mountain Laurel.
Is that where the Marriott Hotel is?
No.
Okay, but well, Mountain Brook's got a development there that is stunning, and Carmel. And if we can come anywhere near close to the other properties that I visited, which seems like our family is always drawn to those style of communities, this is going to be a crown jewel of this county. So I think I'm really looking forward to working with you all on this. You've done a phenomenal job, and I'm stunned with what you've accomplished in just such a short period of time.
And I think it's important to reiterate what Wes said, and that is there's an awful lot of work before they got here. So they've been on site for a day and a half, but their work predated that. So are there any other members of the Architectural Review Committee or of the council who have got a comment or a question? David Holmes?
I just want to comment to you about the Box Theater and the amphitheater. And part of the reason that I'm excited about the prospect of those, whether they're included in your final plan or not, is that we've done through the mayor and Kathy art in City Hall, which we had not done before. And it brought a lot of community activity to City Hall that we hadn't had before. Likewise, in the pavilion in the summertime, we have concerts every month here, and that's brought a lot of community activity to it. But in both instances, we're restricted by parking. We have limited parking here. We've enlarged the parking, but it still is limited, and especially for the summer concert series, people don't want to bring their young kids across 42 to come to the concerts, and that's been a problem. So having the parking garages and the parking access that you have in the head property is really critical for us, I think, to increase our community involvement. And I'm really excited about the prospect of that, and like the fact that you've wrapped the parking garages up, which I don't think they did well in Norton's Common, the parking garage for the apartments there. And I think that's a real downfall for Norton's Common in terms of that. Not being critical to you if you were involved in that, but I'm just, as an observation, I like the wrapping, that idea that you have here.
Mike, you get a rebuttal.
No, and that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is one gap that admittedly is unfortunate. We did the best we could. We didn't design the building, we reviewed them and critiqued them. But you may be referring to a place where there's a building missing still to come. It's
Okay.
going to cover completely.
Sure, and that's possible. Certainly that's possible. Lastly, I ask you all, as you're planning to do the parking garages, to think about putting in some EV parking charging stations, because we have only 2 in all of Prospect, and they're by the cleaners over here. And at some stage of the game down the road, if this is a 10 or a 20-year plan, 2 EV parking is not going to cut it. But anyway, if you think about that, I would appreciate that.
Other members of the council? John?
Is there a benchmark for retail versus residential at the beginning? Like percentages? Like when you were starting from the beginning, would you say, here's our target, and then we kind of...
It's not a, well, first of all, it's not versus, because the mixed-use buildings that we're creating can have, these are all apartments lining the street here. They can have retail under them, or the residential could go all the way down to the ground floor, right? So we're imagining these as apartment buildings, and we're imagining these as probably row houses. But ideally, if the demand is there among merchants, to have the entire ground floor of both the main street and potentially even the square being retail, in addition to whatever civic and public uses we're going to put there, would be pretty fantastic. But typically in our plans we have retail required area because retail wants to be next to retail. So if you don't create a place where it's required, you don't get that continuity. And then we have retail optional area where it can spill out. So in a tentative version of this plan, for example, might have retail required down the whole Main Street and then retail optional around the square. I think most of us would like to see retail all the way around the square, in addition to the civic buildings that are there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, I would.
I didn't hear the closing the streets and the markets and how the square intentionally was designed in such a way.
This square was designed, it's interesting that when you attach a square to one side, when you have no street between the buildings and it's easier to serve it food and drink, but then it's less versatile as a civic space. What we're showing here is a square that's a traditional American main square, town square, but you'll notice that the street network effectively is a T. This is a two-way street all the way through. So these two legs could be closed temporarily, for a day, for a week, maybe permanently if you like. And I would suggest we put bollards on it. But the idea of this L, for example, being cobblestone or brick pavers, and then both drivable but not drivable when you don't want it to be, would be a very nice way to design it.
So art shows, farmers markets.
The concern would be too much retail and we have empty spaces, which is not very desirable, but I know there's a lease up time and all that, but that would be the concern because there are empty spaces in our shopping center over here and it's kind of depressing to see.
Totally depressing. And the last thing, that's the worst way to attempt to lease another space is to have all the other ones be empty. One thing to point out, Jeff was sharing how this street could be closed on a temporary basis without affecting the traffic flow. And we've talked a lot about Norton Commons already. If you know that square where the new Gustavo's is going up and the existing one at the other end, that square wasn't designed like that. That has one-way traffic on both sides of the square. So you can't shut one side down easily and allow the traffic. Now you can because it's more broadly, it's an interconnected grid, but it doesn't work as well as this. So every one of you, I mentioned mistakes that I've made early on. I'll make different ones, in the rest of my career, but I won't make the same ones again. So we're always learning from these places and watching how people interact. And so this is, you have the benefit of those lessons learned from these many other places that we build, and that's one of the techniques that's commonly used in the newer communities we're designing.
Let me mention one other point of clarification. I think it's a point of clarification. These are not necessarily buildings. These are spaces where.
So the in this particular drawing, and I should have stated it more clearly at the beginning. In this particular type of drawing, the reddish color you see only are buildings, and then everything else are lots that would put buildings on them.
Could be row houses or
row houses, bungalows.
Shops.
Same thing in this drawing where only the brown buildings or the reddish brown are buildings and everything else is just imagined as a lot.
Don Gibson.
Collection of lots.
Don Gibson.
Yeah, you guys have put together a very impressive plan over a very short period of time, and I congratulate you for that. I have a question on getting out of the main entrance exit and taking and heading east. How does somebody do that? Did I hear we need another roundabout?
I'm having a little hard time hearing that.
The question was, how do you get out of this development on 42 and head east?
Yeah, the idea is that there would be a
we'll show that on the plan we share on Friday. We'll show the roundabouts that you've already proposed for 42, and then this additional one that, and for the woman who, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Nancy, for Nancy's question, we'll get you the distance between those as well.
And so Don, they're talking about around about here, in 42.
Okay, you're introducing a lot of density, both residential and in destination, and on purpose, and a center of more or less in Prospect. But that's an awful lot of traffic introduced to 42, and the state has to, the federal government requires 20 years when they build a highway. It has to be accommodate traffic for the next 20 years. This is going to be a significant change for that, for what we're already doing. And is the state going to put in this roundabout? I think they are. So we'll have to go through that process to get another roundabout in.
Yeah, and we've got the grant from KIPTA to study the other intersections in Prospect, and that this would be part of that study for the intersections other than the 3 that have roundabouts.
Right.
So it's a very important point.
It's a huge challenge, I think.
Yeah.
Getting another roundabout in. The project we have is $10 million, and it's already 13 million. And so we have to go back to KIPTA, the state. First, we have to get the approval, and then we have to go back and get the funds. So that's just not going to happen overnight.
It doesn't happen overnight. We've learned that.
Part of the review process for any major development plan in the city of Louisville, which then hopefully Prospect will be a big portion of, is traffic studies. So we can't, no matter what we propose and how much sense it makes and how much anybody likes it, until we get a traffic study that goes through the state and everything, they don't approve anything. And that is definitely a part of the process that we'll be entering into in the coming months.
Well, the planning board seems to have different criteria for approval than maybe the state. And so we're going to need to get state approval for this.
Okay, council members, other council members, other members of the Architectural Review Committee. Sandra, I know, stepped out, but Sandra, do you want to comment?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Mayor, before you end the meeting, I just wanted to apologize. I have a hearing back home on Friday, so I will not be here Friday.
Okay.
Mike will.
Okay, safe travels. So we appreciate you being here today and the work that you're doing, and we clearly understand other obligations that come up. Okay, I'll entertain 1 or 2 more comments or questions from the non-members of the Architectural Review Committee and the council, if there are any. Yes, John?
Just a design criteria to pay attention to. My wife and I lived here for 20 years now, and we've watched things happen as the rain has fallen. We've got a pretty big floodplain out there now. More buildings, more asphalt is going to make that floodplain get bigger. May even become floodway in some instances. I'd hate to see that on River Road, for instance. But consider that, because the Corps will do its little computation, but get somebody who really understands.
Thank you, John. At this point, I think I'll ask if there's a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Members of the council and members of the Architectural Review Committee, I'll ask you to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.